All right, y'all. Welcome back to the Who's Right podcast. And everybody's in camp, and we're ready to go. But there's some things to talk about. Pete spoke to the media. Montas got injured. So let's talk about it. But before we get into it, Victor will join us in and out. But subscribe to the channel, like this video, let us know how you're feeling. How do you feel about the Montas injury? Or, how do you feel about Pete being back? His media session went yesterday, and, it was interesting, to say the least. That's how I say it. But, what can you do, right? Pete's back, makes us a better team. And I know Victor's always saying that I'm a hater, but
You are a
but
hater, man. But at the end of the day, he did say some interesting things that I'm excited to talk about on dad duty again this morning. So I will be in and out, but can't miss an episode talking Mets with you guys. So excited to talk about it, but also like you said, there's some things that we got to talk about that are not so great with the Montas injury. So yeah, man, excited to get into it today.
yeah, no, for sure. So let's before we get into the whole Pete, because probably Pete will take a little bit of the time talking about Pete, since Victor's a hater. And so let's talk about Montas. He got a lat injury, and he looks like he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. Won't start throwing to probably until mid-May. And so he's probably out to at least middle of June, maybe end of June. And I know people out there have been talking about, do we trade for Cease now? Do we sign Quintana? And I don't think they're going to do anything. I think they're going to wait and see and let it play out. Because at the end of the day, Montas is back as a rotation starter, right? Everybody wants Quintana back, but I don't know if that's the play right now. I think you can wait. I think you can wait and see what happens. McGill, I think, can fill in for Montas while he's out. It's the beginning of the season, so it's not like we're expecting McGill to finish the season the way strong. We're just expecting him to be in there until Maltas gets back, and I think that's going to be the move. We already know Canning's going to be in the bullpen, and Blackburn's got that other spot. So McGill, who we thought might have been a guy that might have not been in the rotation because of his options, is now probably a lot to make the opening day roster. And so, it's I think that's going to be the play. I think that's going to be the move. I think that's going to be the play. I don't see anything else happening. Last year we had the Senga injury, and you didn't see Stearns make a move, right? So I don't think they're going to do a lot right now. Stearns makes us all nervous, but Stearns, is a good poker player, I think, and I think he's gonna do all right by just holding pat, and waiting to see how it shakes out. They're comfortable with a fluid roster. It makes us uncomfortable because as fans we want certainty. But I think that's going to be kind of the move going forward. McGill's going to take that spot, and um, at the end of the day, this rotation, which we thought had some uncertainty at the back end, is I think set for the opening day. I think it's all six starters are set right now. No competition, unless a guy like Sproat lights it up in spring training, and I still don't think he's gonna make the roster because I think they're gonna want him to show out a little bit in AAA, and they want to get him some seasoning. So even if he does do well in spring training, I still think it's going to be McGill as far as the sixth starter in place of Montas right now. And everybody's raving about Clay Holmes. He's brought so many pitches to his arsenal this year, and another back end of the rotation, and he's looking good. And you know, it's one of those things where I think they're just gonna be steady with it, right? Unfortunately, when we sign so many people, um, there's just so many moves that you can do, and there's just so many things that you can move around. And as much as we want to bring in guys, um, the roster doesn't allow that right now. Not that you can't change the roster, but you want to see what you got. You're going to give them a few weeks, maybe at least into the middle of May, before you start making moves. And I think that's what happened last year as well.
Yeah, this is exactly what David Stearns kind of prepared for. We knew that there was going to be injuries going into the season. Last year, it happened, and we prepared for it. How funny is it, though, that Tyler McGill found his way most likely into the major league roster again for opening day? I don't think this is going to result in him pitching opening day again, but he was most likely going to make the roster, especially with Mendoza already confirming that Budo's in the bullpen, and the other guys that are, like you said, Spro and Tidwell, that have the opportunity, unless they shine out and absolutely kill it in spring training, they're most likely going to start in AAA. And so it's really cool to kind of give that opportunity to Tyler McGill, because honestly, we've been saying it for the past 2 years, but it might actually mean something this year. This is his last shot. He doesn't have any other opportunities. One, this is his last year on a minor league contract. And so, unless a team out there is willing to give him a shot, then he's not going to get an opportunity to play in the big leagues like he is this year. Again, this might be his shot to prove himself. And then, two, we saw a bunch of good signs last year, especially in spring training, where he kind of shined out and then fiddled out or fizzled out at the start of the season. And so we saw that he has some good stuff, and I think that he can play an impact on this major league club come well at any point of the season, but hopefully to start the season as well. But I'm more interested in guys like you said, Canning, uh, Clay Holmes, for those guys to really step up, because last year Clay Holmes was a reliever, and Canning didn't have a great season. And so Holmes has been working hard. I'm sure Canning has too. But right now, I don't foresee us going out and trading for Dylan Cease, like you said. Even though I would love for that to happen, we still have our top of the rotation guys in the Sengas, the Manayas, even the Petersons, to not warrant that. If it was another situation where Manaya or Senga got injured, I think that might warrant a different conversation. But because this is a different play kind of player in a reclamation project, in a Frankie Montas, I don't think that this one necessarily warrants going out for Dylan Cease.
Yeah, exactly, and especially because of the price tag that the San Diego is asking for, right? For a 1 year rental, because he is going to hit the market next year. He's going to want to see what he can get, and again, Stearns is not a guy that likes to re-sign older pitchers for a long-term contract, and Cease is going to be looking for that too. So that's something to keep in mind in the whole Cease conversation, is that he might not want to give up much because he knows he's not going to resign him, and so it's one of those things that we just gotta um, ride it out. I know as fans we don't like it, but like Victor said, it's the back rotation reclamation project guy that they're not going to go nuts about right now. The next thing I want to get into is Iglesias. Iglesias had lunch with Boris's mouthpiece, John Heyman, and trying to make a last plea to make it to see if the Mets will re-sign him. And I just find it hard to believe that Mets are interested in bringing back Iglesias for a couple reasons. Mendoza, one, Stearns has said it that it's time to move on, and Mendoza kind of says we have to put OMG in the rearview mirror. I mean, he didn't say OMG, but he said the 24 season. And he said that we got to start something new. And I agree with him. We're bringing up back a lot of guys that were on the team, and at the end of the day the idea is to get better, right? I know a bunch of people out there were saying run it back with the same guys, especially since we got Soto now. But that's not unless you win it. That's not what you do, right? Unless you win it, you don't run it back with the same team. And so I don't know who does that and then eventually wins. Um, but uh, but at the end of the day, until you win the World Series, you don't run it back with the same squad. You're always looking to get better. And in Iglesias' case, um, the way we get better is by allowing the young guys to take that spot, right? It's the 13th man on the hitting side of the roster, and it's not a guy that we need to worry too much about because I don't know if you heard Mendoza talk about they want Acuna to get a shot, and they even said because I know a lot of people were talking about Iglesias as the backup shortstop, but Lindor said he doesn't want to take any days off, right, in this press conference. And Mendoza, in one of his press conferences, said Beatty's going to get a couple shots, right? So if something happens to Lindor, they're going to want him to see if he can play some emergency shortstop, not full time shortstop, but emergency shortstop. Oh, sorry. I thought Victor was popping in, but yeah. So we were, when I heard Mendoza say that, that kind of closes the door on Iglesias unless there's a trade. That's the only way I see Iglesias coming back if there's a trade, because I think it's going to be a battle for that last spot between Acuna and Beatty, and honestly, I think they like Beatty more than Acuna, from what I can gather from the comments. And so I don't see Iglesias coming back unless there's a trade, because the roster's kind of set. We kind of said that we wanted to leave room for competition, but there is no competition right now in the opening day roster, right? Right field is Soto. Center field, you got Siri and Taylor. Left field, you got Nimmo and Winker, right? And Marte mixes into that. That's six guys in the outfield, which is one more than you want. But because we couldn't trade Marte, we got six guys in the outfield, and we signed Winker. In the infield, that only leaves one spot open for because you got Pete came back, McNeil, Lindor, and Vientos. That leaves one spot for a rotation, not a rotation, a utility guy, and um, Evan Roberts on the Rico Bronya was talking about this that the guy that is next up, if let's say Beatty doesn't make the roster, starts in AAA. If there's any injury to any position other than shortstop, Beatty's the first guy up, right? Because you have six outfielders, so you're not bringing up an outfielder if somebody gets hurt in the beginning. And Beatty plays third, Beatty plays second, Beatty plays first, and he can play emergency shortstop if needed. But Lindor said he ain't taking the day off. He said MLB does enough with giving people days off throughout the year. So don't expect Lindor to take any days off in the beginning of the season. Maybe he'll take a few days off in August, maybe. But Lindor kind of prides himself in playing every day, and so I don't see him taking any days off. So if he doesn't take any days off, we don't need a backup shortstop. I know it's a risky business, but as an emergency, Beatty can probably play it. And Madrigal is another guy that they have, but I and who was it that talked about it? I think it was in the Talking Mets podcast. They talked about that it might be Madrigal that gets the first shot, kind of like Short and Wendell got the first shots last year to see what they got. So it actually might even be an uphill battle for Beatty and Acuna because of that. And so it's one of those things that I just don't see Iglesias coming back. If someone else can kind of let me know and see a path for Iglesias to come back, um, I'd like to see it. Other than you just want him back, but you show me the way that he comes back. If it's not by a trade, that we trade a McNeil or even a Marte.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Jose Iglesias doesn't make sense to come back on this team. Although the vibes would be immaculate, we can't really afford him. Not dollar wise, but roster wise. Because like you said, they want to give the young guys a shot. They believe in Brett Beatty most of all, but also in Luis Angel. They said that they're going to give those guys an opportunity, and this is what good organizations do. They give their young guys an opportunity to prove themselves. And quite frankly, that's what we need to do. If you're not fighting for a starting spot, then give these young guys an opportunity to win the backup spot so that they can get to the major leagues. It's the same thing that we're talking about with Tyler McGill. We have to give these guys an opportunity to prove themselves because for guys like Brett Beatty, this is his last opportunity. Next year he goes into arbitration and might not be back on the Mets if he doesn't work out this year. And so this is an opportunity to give him a shot at the major league level and prove himself for one last shot. And for Luis Angel, we've seen him play the position before. So it's not like we don't have any options at shortstop. Because at the end of the day, we love that Francisco Lindor likes to play every day, but he's not gonna. I don't think Carlos Mendoza is gonna let him do that. Especially him mentioning the back issues last year. We know that he's getting older. He even said that he started a few weeks or a few months maybe earlier this year because he knows he's getting older and he didn't want to give himself any leeway to get injured. And so we do need that spot, but it can be filled internally. And to go back to what you said about even if we ran it back, if we ran it back because we won the World Series, we don't see the Dodgers doing that. The Dodgers went out and got even better. They won the World Series with ease and then said, how can we make this easier next year? And so we have to follow that same philosophy of not going and running back with the same teams because that's just baseball. This isn't basketball where you can do it over and over again with the same team and win out. This isn't football. This is an 162 season plus where every game is different, and you're gonna have to change up your your team to accommodate that. There are new players coming in the league every single week and making an impact. And if you're not trying to improve yourself, then I don't hate to hate on the Phillies, but look at the Phillies. The Phillies have run it back with the same team every year, and they've only gotten worse in a worse position each year. Starting off in that 2023 season. No, 2022. They made it to the World
2022.
Series. They next year the CS. This past year the DS. And every Mets fan likes to jokes that they're gonna go out in the wild card series this year. And that's all fun and games. But the serious thing is that they didn't go out and try to get better. They stuck out the same lineup that they had every single year. And I think David Stearns is smarter than that to avoid doing that with running out the same team, and I like it. We gotta try some things new so that we can continue to build a dynasty like we want to.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a great point about the Dodgers. They won the World Series last year and just got better by adding some players. You know, I know Mets fans love the nostalgia aspect of their players, and it's all great and good until we don't win, right? And then those same fans are going to be jumping down or clamoring for us to make moves and changes. I mean, you and I did it last year with Pete. So and JD Martinez and all those guys. We turned on the dime because we wanted to. We were set to sell everything off last year, the way they started. And luckily Stearns had patience and waited and and got the moves that we needed to fix a little bit of the bullpen. Obviously, we didn't get it fully fixed. Our guys ran out of gas because they weren't used to pitching that much, and that happens. Hopefully with a year like he had last year, now being able to pitch a little bit more, better, longer. Minaya is ready to pitch as long as he needs to, and Senga as well. So and Peterson for sure is ready to go. So I agree with you. Phillies are a great example of running the same team back, and they want to make changes. They were floating the idea of trading Alec Bohm at the beginning of the offseason. They even understand at this point that they need to make changes to their roster. So in the '90s, I remember the Braves doing it. The Braves traded or let go of Steve Avery. I can't forget it how it was, but they made changes where everybody was like, "What are they doing? They're letting go one of their top pitchers." And and this and right here we're talking about a backup. So, guys, we gotta let him go. Yeah, we're not gonna beat a dead horse there unless something happens. I don't see him coming back, or we don't see him coming back. But if something happens, be glad to have him back. But I don't hold my breath on us being able to trade McNeil or Marte at this point. And uh, and finally, let's get into it. Let's get into the Pete presser yesterday. Pete had some things to say. He doesn't want us to believe what's out there. It's funny that he started with that, but he doesn't want us to believe what's out there. He doesn't want us to believe all the hype that he didn't want to come back. And so, but if you listen to the presser, kind of sounded like he didn't want to come back. He's kind of upset that it kind of sounded to me that he was upset that he had a QO, and it kind of sounded to me that if it wasn't for that QO, he thinks he would have gotten better offers. And that may be true, uh, but is it really? Because we look at Bregman. Bregman had five offers before he signed with Boston, right? He waited a long time, but he had five offers before signing with Boston. How many did Pete have? Maybe three. We heard about the Angels, um, but we heard about the Angels. We weren't not even sure if that's even accurate at this point. We heard about Toronto, so we had for sure two teams that were in on Pete, maybe. And so I kind of, you know, don't agree with Pete that the QO affected his market. I know it suppresses some people's markets, but honestly, that suppresses some people's markets because they value themselves higher than what they are. Nick
Dude,
Pavetta is a great example of this. Go ahead.
dude, you're a hater, man. You hate on Pete so much. Yeah, I was surprised he came out as hot as he did because he, was honest about his frustration. Not, although he wasn't honest, sorry, I gotta go. But although he wasn't honest completely about his frustration, he was not he wasn't letting anything go, and so I do think he wanted to be back, though. I do think he wanted to be back in the Mets uniform, but he's frustrated with the ways that these negotiations went.
Uh, I mean, I don't know if he wanted to be back. Um, I think he was hoping to get, from what I got from that presser, if he would have gotten better offers, he would have been gone. That's what I got from the presser. Um, I know you want to call me a hater, but that's what I heard from him. He kept getting peppered with similar questions. Good job by the New York media to ask him those questions and get the real scoop out of Pete. And he himself admitted he didn't. It's funny. He said in one breath he says that the QL suppresses market, and in the same breath he says he didn't have a Pete year. He didn't have a good year. So which one is it? Is it the QO suppressing your market, or is it that you didn't have a good year? So that's
It's both,
honestly what
man.
happened.
It's both, man. He didn't have a peak year. He's been saying what I said these past couple of years. He didn't have his best years in 23 and 24, and the QO did suppress his market, I think. And at the end of the day, um, whatever with the contract this year. We'll find out next year. Next year is going to be the real test because the other thing that was interesting that I thought he said in the contract was, yeah, this is a bridge. This is a bridge contract. He completely disregarded the 2 year opt in that he can do at the end of the year and said, yeah, I'm going to opt out after this year and test the market again. And so I can see what you're saying, where he doesn't want to be back, and I even accepted that when he took the 2 year deal instead of the three. But with everything that happened leading up to this point, I could understand his frustrations, and ultimately, I still believe that the Mets are the best fit for him, and I do believe that he can make a long lasting career out of being in a Mets uniform.
I mean, I'm I don't know about that, but I hope this is one of those things where I hate feeling like this when it comes to a homegrown vet, but it's I think he's kind of laid this out for some fans to feel the way they do about Pete right now. Obviously, our feelings will probably change once Pete starts producing, and the hope is that he does start producing like he did a couple years ago. So that's where I'm I'm gonna leave that. I don't. Um, I don't feel the same way about Pete like I did of the beginning of last year. Um, I always thought Pete was going to be a forever Met, and I just don't see it now. One, he had the year that he had last year, and two, he he made me sour on him when it comes to the offseason. You know, I think getting that offer a couple years ago and firing his agents after not being happy about the offer that he got, and then hiring Scott Boras, and then Scott Boras with his shenanigans this past offseason when it came to Pete. Because I'm not going to bring Soto into this because most any other agents could have had Soto sign for that contract. So I just not a big shenanigans guy, and Boris is all about shenanigans, and so I'm a until Pete turns it around, I'm gonna stay sour. I know you can call it hate, but um, I'm a root for him when he comes to the bat. But I'm not happy with him right now, and things can change, right? Big shout out to Julie in the chat. She says she that Alonso just wants to maximize his money on a long-term deal, and she doesn't think he's coming back next year, and neither do I. But it's we'll see. But things can change because guess who it changed, right? A couple years ago, we were talking the same way about Francisco Lindor with the thumbs down incident, and now you have me calling him our captain, right? So things can change if the player changes.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree. Things can change in the next year, but I will admit, it does make it a little easier to let go of Pete next year after everything that happened this off season. After this press conference of him being so blunt and honest about caring more about the money than about the team, and so I do agree it will be easier, but you know what else has changed in the cards regarding to Pete next year? There was a report this morning that Vlad Guerrero Jr. and the Blue Jays were not able to meet an agreement on a contract, and so that is a huge development in this Pete talk for next year, because most likely, even if he does have a good year, there probably aren't any talks of Pete extending within the year. They're probably going to wait it out to the offseason, which is probably what was going to happen either way. And so that he could test his market. But now I think it's a sure thing that the Mets are going to be in on Vladdy, going to be in on that Japanese phenom, and again, Pete might be third fiddle to these guys again, where they're going to try to find something else. And like I said, makes it a little easier with the way that things were handled this year. I just hope that Pete Alonso can, like you said, change our hearts, change our minds for him, so that we can go into the off season begging for him to come back again.
Yeah, no, for sure. Absolutely. And that's a great point. That's going to change a lot of people's minds too with Pete, regardless if he has a good year or not. Some people are going to be on that Vladdy bandwagon for the Mets to sign him. And you're right. As far as Pete, when he opts out next year, is going to be third fiddle to those two guys, to those two guys, Vladdy and Murakami. So it's interesting. But again, change my mind, Pete. You can change my mind. Lindor did it. Lindor's our captain now, and so change your mind. I'm open. I'm always open because I love the Mets. I love my team, and I'm always going to root for the Mets. And if you do well for the Mets, I'm a root for you. But we're going to leave it there. We're going to end it there. Spring training. First games is on Saturday. I'm excited to see them. It's going to be a good week. Juan Soto looks good in that Mets uniform, and so for um, Saturday. But before we get out of here, subscribe to the channel, like this video. Tell us no, on the replay. Let us know how you're feeling about the whole Pete press conference. About the Montas injury, about all that. What's going on? Do you want them to sign Quintana? Do you want them to trade for somebody? Let us know how you're feeling. But before we get out of here, hey Victor, any last words?
Yeah, Francisco Alvarez said that we have the best lineup in Major League Baseball. And I have to tend to agree with him. From 1 to 9, we look good, man. And I know that he has to be more humble, but when you got the best tattooed on your neck, how are you not going to admit that we have the best lineup in Major League Baseball? And so, but like everyone has gone out and said, we got to go prove it. So it starts on Saturday. Prove that we're a viable contender for this World Series. Prove that we're the best lineup. We have the best lineup in Major League Baseball. Not just the best lineup, but the best team. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.